and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Craig West. I'm the CEO and founder of Succession Plus. We've been working with mid-market business owners for nearly 12 years now. Over 700 clients we've worked with to maximise the value of their business and achieve a successful exit. And we've now grown to have 26 advisors nationally. We're also operating in the UK and New Zealand. And the way that we do that is use this unique 21-step business succession and exit planning process. We walk our clients through step by step through this process. I first developed this back in 2006. It was actually only 9 steps. Then it grew to 15 and now it's 21 steps. And we use this with all of our clients to help them understand exactly what they've got, what they need to do to prepare themselves, the business, for an exit. Today I'm going to walk you through some of the key things that we do, but also the most important, what I call 7 critical success factors for business succession and exit planning. Some of the things we do business valuations, we obviously do a lot of analysis. We talked about the 21-step process already. We do some growth acceleration, so sometimes our clients aren't quite ready or thinking about an exit or retirement, but they want to accelerate the value of the business. We manage transactions. We have an M&A team that looks at transactions and selling businesses. We've got a fair amount of ESOP experience and expertise in implementing ESOPs. We currently have more than 100 clients with employee share plans that we manage, and they've got over 1,000 employees operating as shareholders within those plans. And lastly, you'll see a fair bit of academic research, insights into industry data, valuation data, etc. Now, let's get into the main topic around business succession and exit planning. And I think it's really important, firstly, to understand what exactly does that mean. And for me, it's about getting 3 things right at the same time. The business needs to be ready. The financials need to be ready, and that's financials in terms of the business and the operations, but also the family or the owners or shareholders. And lastly, the individual people. Personal goals are really important. People need to know and understand what it is they're going to do after business. Now, successful succession or exit planning is about getting those 3 things right all at the same time. Clients that have done that have been quite successful and been able to maximize value, extract that value when it came time to exit, and then work on how they retire afterwards. 5 stages of value, and we'll work through some of those key points as we go through and look at the 7 critical success factors. Firstly, it's not going to happen by chance. You will exit your business. Every single business owner will exit their business unless they invent some way that people are going to live forever. We're all going to have to exit. The key thing I tell people is you want to manage that process yourself. You don't want it to happen to you because you've left it too late or because something else goes wrong and you're suddenly stuck. What you need to do is work out how to identify, maximize, protect, and unlock that value in your business on your terms in your time frame. And that's quite an important aspect. So let's get into the 7 critical factors that you need to have in place to be successful at getting this right. The first one, whilst it's pretty obvious to most people, it's not that common. You need to begin with the end in mind. What does that mean? Understand some critical questions. Why are you in business? What are you actually looking to achieve? Is it about a dollar amount? Is it about funding retirement? Is it about building a business that's a legacy for your family so your kids can take over or their kids can work in the business and take over? Is it about listing your company? Is it about something else? And it doesn't matter what the answer is, but most business owners don't know the answer. And that's the important point. You have to know what your business is all about and what are you trying to achieve by using that business. I often ask people, what does your business look like in 10 years' time? And it's quite surprising that a lot of people don't know the answer to that. So really spend some time thinking about that. In 10 years from now, are you still in the business? Do you still work there? Do you still own it? Is it maybe run by another family member? Or have you sold it and used the money to invest in something else or to retire? None of those are right or wrong questions. It's all about you being very clear on what you've got in your business and how you want to use it for your future planning. So 10 years from now. And the reason I'm saying 10 years is good strategy takes time. It's not quick and easy to prepare a business, the owners, the financials for exit. Minimum 2 or 3 years and sometimes 5. So the earlier you start, the best possible result you're likely to get. If you leave it too late, then, as I said, firstly, you might be in a position where you can't control or manage the outcome. Secondly, you possibly get the timing wrong, as in GFC or a COVID pandemic or some other effect on the market and the finance position and so on to be able to sell your business. But also you've got to think about family and health and, there's a whole stack of other things that could go wrong, disruption, but also you limit your options. There are a large number of exit options that are available to business owners, but if you leave things too late and your time frame is quite short, you maybe minimise the availability of some of those options. Now, when's the best time? I get asked this all the time. When's the best time to sell a business? Firstly, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be a multi-squillionaire because I'd be investing in the right timeframes. It's very difficult to pick the top. Now, whether you're trying to pick the top of the market for shares in Westpac, Macquarie Bank and BHP, or shares in a privately owned business, or even property prices, it's a difficult thing to do. The key thing is that everything needs to be ready. The business, the owner and the finances are all aligned and at a high point. Now, that's often talked about by advisors and accountants and experts as sale ready or exit ready. My view is your business should be sale or exit ready all the time. You never know when you might get some sort of unsolicited offer or when the market situation just happens to be ideal and right for you to sell. You want to be ready when that happens. The next thing to think about, and this is a little bit of an academic theory to think about, but it's a really interesting point. We're seeing a lot of clients with this thing called role identity fusion. That is, their role in the business is so closely fused to their personal individual identity that they're very difficult to separate. Most business owners, especially baby boomers, are very strongly attached to the business. They maybe have worked in there for 20, 30, even 40 or 50 years. It's them. It's their email address. It's their signature, their names over the door. The customers, the suppliers, the staff know them as the business. And therefore they need time and space to get comfortable about what an exit looks like and what life after business means. That's not going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks, or even in some cases 2 or 3 years. So we need to consider that. Success factor 2 is know where you're starting from. And it still amazes me that most business owners don't understand what they actually have. Now, in Australia, it's very easy to understand what your home's worth. You can get online, you can download reports of recent sales and all sorts of metrics. And often, Aussies particularly talk about it at barbecues. This house up the road sold for $1 million and this one sold for that. That doesn't happen with privately owned businesses. Firstly, they're very difficult to compare. They're all unique and different. But secondly, it's not that kind of asset class. What we've really got to understand is what is your individual business worth? What are the risks that maybe detract from that value? What are the key value drivers that enhance that value? And the important question then is, what levers can I pull or what can I do to adjust or impact that valuation outcome? What can I do to maximize the value of my business? Now, my advice is it all begins with insights. For every single client that we work with, we produce a business insights report. It's very difficult to begin with the end in mind and plan towards a particular outcome if you don't know where you're starting from. The business valuation is a great place to start. Before you make any decisions, before you implement a particular strategy or agree on a particular exit option, you should get a valuation so you know what you're dealing with. What have you actually got? What's it actually worth? And what do I need to do to have an impact to improve that valuation? The valuation will give you a number, a metric. Your business is worth $4 million. And that's great. It's a useful piece of information, but it's not the end of the game. What is also important is understanding some of the factors that contribute to that number. Why is it worth 4 million, not 3 or 5? What are the non-financial areas that have a direct impact on risk and therefore reduce the valuation? What about the sale readiness and attractiveness aspects? What is it that makes my business valuable from a strategic growth perspective that could actually increase the value and impact a potential sale going forward? Now, there's a couple of key factors, obviously. Profit, which we measure financially. We get profit and loss statements and we can do all sorts of add backs and adjustment to them and come up with a number. Potential is also important. Starting to think about things like intangible assets, strategic growth factors. Have we got potential to export our product, for example? Have we got unique IP that could be licensed internationally? And then the last factor is risk or perceived risk. How risky is that profit is what we want to know. Now, if you take a rental property example and it's rented out for $500 a week, certainly in Australia at the moment, it's very easy. If that tenant moves out, you'll replace them fairly quickly. They'll probably also pay $500 a week because that's the market. It's not a very risky profit or income. But when you talk about a privately held company, there are literally hundreds of things that could go wrong, that could change that $500 rent. It may well be that there are no clients available. It may well be that somebody brings a new product to the market that's available for $400. Or it may just be that there's no demand because your industry's been disrupted. All of that makes that profit more risky, and more risk reduces the valuation. And that's an important thing to understand. We want to make sure we don't just focus on profit and growing the financial performance of the business. We've also got to reduce the risk. The next thing is really to understand, critical success factor number 3 is understand your exit goal. What does a successful exit look like for you? Not for anyone else. Your business is for you. It's been built by you, it's been bought by you or invested in, etc., for you and for your outcome. So you need to understand very clearly, what does success look like for you in terms of exiting? Is it about the business continuing to operate after the transaction or the transition? Is it about passing it on to your family? Is it about getting a good financial outcome for the exiting shareholders, if that's you as the founder? Or is it about looking after your staff to continue on in the business? What we're seeing in the market at the moment is a bit of a change away from a primary focus on financial harvest to a primary focus on legacy or stewardship. What does that mean? I get a lot of business owners saying things to me like, I really want to look after my staff. I really want to make sure the business continues to be successful after I leave. I want to make sure my suppliers and product continues on the way that they are. They want to leave a legacy. Maybe that's for their family. Maybe they want their kids to take over and run the business. And there are some exit strategies, like an employee share plan, for example, where you can possibly do the best of both. But you really need to be clear on, what does that actually mean? Now, from the academic research that I've recently completed, there are a couple of key factors here. Firstly, down the middle are the key drivers we just spoke about, financial harvest or legacy stewardship type outcomes. On the right are most of the key exit options that are available to business owners. Now, if you go right to the top-hand side on the right there, IPO or listing, strategic sale, these are high financial outcomes. Private equity, those sorts of things are really geared towards and focused on maximum dollars. Right down the bottom on the right-hand column, family and friends, that's not about maximum dollars normally. It's nearly always about legacy. Now, in the middle, you'll see around employee share plan management, buyout, partial sale, there are some exit options that actually include parts of both key drivers, and that's something that's being interesting in the market at the moment. On the left-hand side are some of the key decision drivers for business owners. Are they aware of all the possible options? What size and structure does their organisation or business have? You can't list, if you run a corner newsagent that turns over $400,000 a year in a Main Street type business, you can't IPO that asset. It's not possible. Time, how much time's available? Are we driven by a particular date or time? Or are we in a point now where we've got an unplanned exit, where someone's seriously ill, or there's a partnership breakdown, or a family dispute, or a divorce, or something like that? Financial reward, what do the owners need to get out of the business and retire? Stakeholder and family acceptance, are your family happy to take over the business, for example? And lastly, which advisors do we have involved and why? And what's their main role? Now, obviously, we want to start to look at, as I said, going up to the right-hand side, they're more complicated, they take longer, and they're generally rewarded with a much higher price. Bottom line is you need to think about these options, get some advice about what they look like and which ones are suitable for you and your business, which ones aren't, because there's probably a few in that category as well, and then start to work through the process around driving towards that particular exit strategy. And I use the word there on purpose, process, Business succession and exit planning is not a transaction, and that's critical success factor 4. It really does take time to work through this succession and exit plan. Typically, 2 or more years. Often I've worked with clients for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Sometimes it might take 5 or 10 years. For example, if you want to sell your business to your employees, depending on what industry you're in and the size of your business, that probably won't happen quickly. Employees may not be in a position to write a check to buy your business outright. They maybe have to grow that and buy that over a period of time. Now, in some cases, that's a great outcome for the exiting owner as well. But you have to be aware of the time restrictions here, the process that's involved. It's got to be tailored to fit the company's situation and the owner's objectives. And you will certainly require assistance by other advisors, typically accountants, lawyers, business coaches, maybe bank, etc. You really need to be clear on, going back to the start, begin with the end in mind, what does your retirement look like? What do you need? Now, your needs might be twofold. You might have some financial needs, obviously, to fund retirement, but you might also want to still work 2 or 3 days a week so you're not bored out of your brain. Those things can be a key part of your exit strategy. We have to start to think about what things need to be put in place: corporate governance, a sales system, CRM, marketing automation, policies and procedures, key person management, structure, discipline, etc., to make sure we can maximize the value of the business if that's one of our key outcomes. But it's also about understanding the process and how long it may well take. One of the key points here around process is actually removing the dependence on the business owner. Most business owners are really dependent on the owner, the founder, the key person, mum and dad, whatever it might be. Ask yourself the question, what would happen if you didn't go into the office or the factory or the shop for the next 6 weeks? Would the business still be around? Would it be successful? Or would it be really struggling without you? If the owners are so involved day to day in running the business, then what can often happen is, firstly, everything freezes when you're not around, but secondly, it becomes really inefficient. You're a bit of a choke point, a bit of a roadblock or a barrier. Everything has to go through you. That's a real problem. Some of the symptoms that we see in businesses when there is an ownership trap is owners spending a high proportion of time managing day-to-day matters. There's no delegation, or it's maybe not documented or clear. It's not clear who's got authority to do what. There's no progress around the organisation chart. One of the things I recommend to clients, for example, is to have an organisation chart for now, 1 year, 3 year, 10 years. What does it look like? What are the gaps there? What people need to be brought in? What people need to be trained, etc. And ultimately, it's about functional responsibility within the business, a clear system of accountability so that people are responsible and accountable for the work that they do. Company relying entirely on its owner constitutes a substantial risk. And we really need to get to a point, and I'm working through this in my own business, as most people are. How do we do that? We need to have good people around us. We need to give them authority and functional responsibility, and then we need to get out of their way and let them do it. But we need to have some accountability and systems in place to make sure nothing goes wrong. That, of course, all takes time. Key quote here, when it comes time to sell, a founder's dedication can actually be a detriment to valuation. I've met quite a few business owners who very proudly tell me everything they do in the business, and all I'm hearing is risk and decreased valuation from a buyer's perception. We need to be really careful around this one. Management succession is a big part of this. Getting key roles and people with the right skills in, that takes time. Formalising the succession strategy. Make sure you understand who you've got, what they're capable of, what the gaps are, what training and skills maybe you need to implement or improve to get them to a point where they can manage the business. And that is certainly a process that takes a reasonable amount of time. But it's got some significant benefits. Firstly, it's not all about you anymore. You can go away. You don't need to be in the office every day. You'll generally find the business is more efficient, more productive, reducing costs and roadblocks or barriers, choke points. Business continuity is much better assured because it's not reliant on you as an individual, and you'll generally get better results overall. Certainly something to think about. The transferable value of your business is what someone is willing to pay without you. You have to be able to take yourself out of the business. Number 5, It's all about value, equity value, and we've got to think about the equity value of our business. Now, again, most people understand this around their investment property or their home, but you really need to understand what equity value actually is in your own business. How do we work through maximizing the value of your business? It's important to start the process early to plan towards that eventual exit. What does it need to look like? And again, it's about identifying gaps or barriers, going through those financial, operational, structure, cash flow, growth prospects, and the risks to identify opportunities to improve, to increase value. Again, when we reduce risk, we increase value. So it's not just about higher profits. It's about all of the other things that go around. In fact, I have a very good friend who often says to me, profits are the result of doing everything else well. It's not the other way around. And that's important. We need to really understand what's our business worth and how do we build that over an extended period of time. You're not going to do this in 3 or 6 months. It might be 3 or 6 years, in fact. But how do we do that over time as part of our strategy? Here's the example. This is straight from a Business Insights report that we use with clients. It shows them the value of their business today on the left there at $5.31 million and the potential value, which in this case is $9 million. Now, there's nearly $4 million of increased value there. That's substantial. It's a lot of money. But there's a whole process, the 21-step process we have to go through step by step to actually get from 5.3 to 9. And that's going to take 18 to 20 months, maybe even longer. Strategic value. Step number 6. This is probably the most important thing to understand. Who and how you sell to is the number one thing that will increase the valuation of your business. Now, people often hear about or talk about a strategic sale. That's what I'm talking about here. Every single business I've ever worked with has some kind of strategic value. But you've got to work out what it is, identify it now, and work out how to maximize it well before you're ready to exit, well before you're approached by a buyer or someone external to have a look at the business. The secret sauce to your business is where the value lies. Now, what's your secret sauce? Have you got the herbs and spices of Kentucky Fried Chicken? Or have you got intangible assets? Have you got some piece of intellectual property, some special know-how or methodology or system you use that makes your business more competitive or better than others that are in your industry? Have you got patents or trademarks or branding protection and so on? What is it that makes your business more valuable than the guy up the road? Warren Buffett, I often quote Warren Buffett, price is what you pay, value is what you get. What we're looking for here is what is the strategic value in your business? What makes your business more valuable? Why would someone pay a premium to buy your business compared to someone else's? There's some examples here. It might be you've got some particular technology or maybe IP that the business owns. Maybe you've penetrated a particular market or you operate in a particular market that the buyer really wants access to. Maybe you've got resources, including key people, that are critical to success in your particular field or industry. All of those things are examples of strategic sales. Now, there's some pros and cons here. The biggest con is there's a lot of work involved in a strategic buyer. There's a lot of due diligence. There's going to be a focus on locked-in contracts, documents, etc. But the pros far outweigh that. You will generally get much higher value. You'll get a premium normally for future synergies and growth potential. You'll fully realise the value of your IP and intellectual assets. And you should be able to therefore attract a strategic buyer. If we get all of that right, strategic acquisition is actually where it's at. Great examples of strategic buyers are listed companies and offshore companies looking to expand. How do we get 1 + 1 = 3? How do you get paid more for your business than the normal financial buyer? Now, Apple's a great example. When you look at Apple, Apple has made stacks of acquisitions over the last, let's say, 10 years. Tim Cook, CEO, we acquire everything that we need that can fit and has a strategic purpose to it. Secondly, Apple is primarily looking for talent and intellectual property. Now, those two things are the important factors that Apple use to determine what they're going to buy and what they're going to pay for it. It's about maximizing value by being paid a strategic premium, not a financial multiple. Here's some data from Exit Track, which actually shows you down the bottom of this graph the key reasons that buyers explained making strategic purchase decisions. So why did Apple buy? Why did some of the other larger corporates buy other businesses on a strategic basis? Complementary products and services, market niche, location, and then customers, technology, etc. So it's really about understanding leverage points. What have you got in terms of products, services, intangible assets that are quite valuable to an external buyer? Now, it's actually about arbitrage. And what I tell people here is don't focus on the profit. Now, don't get me wrong, you need profit, you need to make money, or you're never going to have anything worth selling. But if you have a look at the effect here of the growth in profit, we've gone from 800,000 on the left-hand side, and we've actually doubled our profit. And of course, that doubles our sales price. We've gone from 2 million to 4 million. There's a lot of work in doing that, but it will work. We're keeping the same multiple. Now have a look what happens if we change the multiple. If we go from our standard multiple in a small to medium business of 2.5 times, we go to 4 times, 6 times, which might be private equity, 8 times, which might be a listed company or a strategic buyer. We haven't just doubled the value of the business, we've almost tripled it without changing our profit. Our profit's still $1 million, but the multiple makes a big difference. EBIT helps, multiple matters. Number one tip here is to achieve the higher sale price, you must focus on how you sell and who you sell to, rather than just increasing the profit. Number 7, the 7 success factors finish with this. People are key people even more so. Reducing key person risk is a very, very important aspect of preparing for an exit. Now that goes right across the business. It certainly starts with the owner. Reducing that risk is important. Recruiting and training new people, if you've got staff turnover problems, it's estimated that'll cost you up to 45% of that employee's salary. So if you've got someone earning $100,000, you're talking about a cost. By the time you recruit the new person, train them, lost productivity, downtime, $45,000 additional costs. It's really about how we attract and retain our key talent. Now, we use a number of methodologies to attract, retain, and motivate key employees. Firstly, a ladder to equity model, which actually shows people how they can work through the various stages in the business, from an employee earning income on the left-hand side, which is where most employees start but also finish, up to an income model, which includes bonuses or commissions or an incentive. They're okay, they work, but they're quite difficult to get right. And what you'll often see is they're very, very heavily geared towards individual behavior, not business-wide or team-based type behaviors. Profit share at step number 3 there certainly work pretty well, where you've got 2 things happening then. Suddenly we're talking about team or overall business performance, not individual, but we're also talking about profit, not just revenue. Profit by definition includes expenses. So we're starting to get employees to think about the financial performance of the company in a similar way that the owner would. The key for me is to get to the 4th step, which is about equity. You as an owner should be focused on building and maximizing the equity value of your business. Now, in my experience, that will be far easier, far more efficient, and far more successful if you can get your employees to work with you to achieve that outcome. And the last step there may not ever be utilised, but it's about handing over control in the business as part of the overall process. If you want to leave, somebody has to be able to run the business. Now, the key underlying model here is actually about what we call ownership mindset. How do you get your people to think and act like a business owner? It's about creating an engaged culture of accountability and purpose. And the way that we do that is having the right people, giving them the right knowledge and information. That's not necessarily, if you're talking about an architecture firm, that's got nothing to do with their skills as an architect. That's not our domain. What it is about is, how does the business of architecture work? How do we make money in an architecture practice? And what can I do as an employee to improve that? Then we've got to put in place systems to measure, report, KPIs, make sure we're tracking that properly, and then incentivize that behavior, most commonly with an employee share plan. Then we need a structure that allows for management succession. One of the reasons people leave employment is they don't see a clear pathway to progression, further education, promotion, more authority, more responsibility, etc. But from an owner's point of view, if you want to retire or exit, you have to have a mechanism for someone to be able to step into your place. Now, that might be one or two people in different areas. It might be a team of people taking over, but you have to have that pathway available. You really need to have that ability to pass on the management of the company to someone else. Certainly, in terms of ownership succession, we're talking about an employee share plan. Recent quote from Forbes magazine talking about employee share ownership plans should be considered as the first, not last resort in thinking about a retirement or succession plan. And certainly, this article written by Mary Joseph, who's very well known in the United States, sort of talking about 3 decades of experience with employee share plans. And so using them as a first resort, not a last resort, is quite a different approach. A lot of people see an employee share plan as maybe the last resort if nothing else works. What we promote is getting an employee share plan, at least considering whether an employee share plan is right for your business early. And if it is, work out how to use it to help you prepare the business for sale, maximize value, lock in your key people, improve productivity and engagement, but also as a good way for owners perhaps to extract cash leading up to retirement, which can be an important aspect for some people. The academic research is pretty clear. Companies with a high degree of employee ownership and an engaged culture, that's important, grow faster, they live longer, they survive through difficult times like downturns better, they attract better customers, better paying customers, they contain better cultures for employees, and importantly, it's not a one-sided argument. Their workers or their employees also tend to be better off as a result. Quote from Sir Stuart Hampson, who was the former chair of John Lewis Partnership, which is a substantial employee share plan if anyone's been to the UK, large chain of grocery, homewares, retail stores, about 81,000 employees, and they are all shareholders. Very, very successful business. Finally, just thinking about what do we need to do 2 things: maximize the value of the business and achieve a successful exit. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be exiting today. It means you need to be exit ready. Thinking about those 7 critical success factors, understanding what you can do to maximize the investment you've made, both in dollars, but also in time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears, and achieve the positive outcome that suits your situation or your particular circumstances. I hope that's been helpful just to illustrate some of those key issues that people need to think about. If you're looking for help in this area, contact details on the screen. Please feel free to reach out, and I'm very happy to introduce you to an advisor in your area that can show you these critical success factors and help them implement those key things within your business to help you maximize value and achieve a successful exit.